So, good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen, in Istanbul, and welcome back from your break. I'm also welcoming the audience online who joins us on an international level in Istanbul. I'm really thrilled to moderate this session hosted by Audemars Piguet about NFTs, a catalyst of change for the art market. We are having four different panelists here. One is Dr. Professor Dirk Boll. We have Gregoire Vogelsang, Anthony Masure, and Steve Sachs. Until they will appear on the screen, I will make a little introduction who they are. Hello, everyone. Hi. So I will start introducing Professor Dirk Boll. He studied and practiced law before studying art management. He joined Christie's in 1998, where he worked in different leading positions in Stuttgart, Zurich, and London. In 2017, he was appointed president of UK, Europe, Middle East, and Africa. Dirk is also a lecturer at the University of Hamburg on the subject of art management. He is a regular contributor to various daily papers and international magazines and has published several books. Welcome, Dirk. Welcome to have you here. Then I would go on to Gregoire Vogelsang, who is the owner and founder of Vogelsang Gallery based in Brussels and founder of Cube Art Fair. Cube Art Fair took place during Frieze, New York in 2021 and is said to be the biggest art fair in the world. It displayed more than 100 NFT artworks of around 40 artists all over the city of New York on newsstands, bus stops, and billboards. The centerpiece was a billboard of 12,000 square feet on the Times Square, which showed rotating works by various artists. Hi, Gregoire, and congratulations to this initiative. And then we have Anthony Masure. He is head of research at HEAD, the University of Art and Design in Geneva. His research focuses on social, political, and aesthetic effects of digital technologies. He already in 2015 co-directed a blockchain lecture series called New Kids on the Block. He also co-founded research journals called Real, Virtual, and Back Office. Pleasure to have you with us, Anthony. Last but not least, and very early in his morning, we have Steve Sachs joining us from San Francisco. He grew up in a family of collectors and art buyers and sellers, and in 1995, Sachs co-founded Digital Pulp, a company devoted to building and branding web-based ventures. After being fascinated with new media art and seeing its potential, he founded Bitforms Gallery in 2001. Bitforms Gallery since represents contemporary new artists from media art. In 2005, he extended his gallery to Seoul in Korea. So good morning to you in San Francisco. Also on the screen, we have Valentin, and I would like to remind the online audience to ask some questions to Valentin. It's your moment now. He's waiting to bring in the questions. We are also having a few questions towards the end of this conversation, and let's start now, actually. So now, with all the publicity around the Christie's online sale of Beeple's NFT for $69 million, a new era of the art market has started, and everyone is fascinated about NFTs. So our objective of this panel today is to share some insights about NFTs and how they will influence the art market and its participants today and in the future. So my first question is around, there is a significant portion of NFTs sales that took place outside of the market. So how have you seen the market respond to NFTs in general, Dirk? If I may start with you.
Of course, thank you for inviting me. I think we have to differentiate between NFTs in general and NFTs in an art context, or NFTs that are part of artistic language and actually an oeuvre. And it's not easy to do that because we haven't seen the art canonization happening in this field. So maybe we could differentiate by the platform that trades the work. At least nowadays, that classic art market platforms have discovered that new technology. As you may have seen in the news, Christie's just sold last night in Hong Kong the first NFT sold by a art market platform in Asia. And this auction meant that in 2021 we traded $100 million in NFT-based works. So what I can say is that for the art industry, that is a substantial market with a substantial growth potential. I'm sure that your question is more directed towards the kind of non-art market platforms, and their turnovers are reported and are, of course, much bigger than ours of all our industry. But then the differentiation between any NFT and like marketing material, for example, and artworks is not as easily done.
Okay, thank you. So, Steve, you've been in the new media art since a long time. Now there is like tons of other participants. As Dirk already mentioned, there are new platforms catering to new audiences. How has this been for you that suddenly your market basically exploded?
Yeah, no, thank you for having me. Now, it's probably been the most disruptive action since I opened the gallery 20 years ago. We've been selling digital-based work, computational work, file-based work for 20 years with a very, in a sense, traditional certification process that has been done, throughout. It's really probably, the most important thing for us is the art, of course. The NFT madness and, flipping mentality is a bit dangerous for the art world. It's removing a lot of artistic integrity and intention. But for us, what's exciting, and I think has actually really improved our business recently, is the fact that an NFT is just a digital certification of the work. And to add this level of credibility to the acquisition of this type of work has opened up the market, not just for traditional collectors, but even for these new NFT types that are coming out that are collecting, which is a very, very, very different audience than the traditional collector. They're actually starting to buy historical works that reference a lot of the things that are happening in the marketplace right now. And that was very unexpected for me to see that. So we have formed quite a few new relationships and opened up our market quite a bit since all of this started to happen.
Thank you. So, Gregoire, you reacted pretty fast to this trend. You were super early and also very innovative. To build a new format, you were among the first one who actually transformed into a hybrid from a gallery to an art fair, which showed NFT work in public. So, what was your approach and your motivation to do that?
Sorry about that. Hi, thank you very much for having me. Our motivation was simply then, I think galleries and art world who not embracing new technology in general will be left behind. We saw, a transition at the beginning from different, at the beginning was also in terms of artists, only artists who are primarily centered around digital native art and crypto art. Those ones are the ones who were creating NFTs, and then slowly, but very rapidly, I would say, but you see a transition of physical medium artists minting the artwork as NFT. So, and you see a lot of artists who are mainstream artists creating NFT because they understand the potential. And as an art fair, we also understand the potential that NFT was bringing to the table. And the same way as mainstream artists understand the potential and how it was important for them to embrace this new technology, we decide as a fair to move fast and also embrace the technology to empower artists to take their career in their own hands, and at the same time educate the general public. We create a fair that where public art fair. We bring NFTs to the street of cities such as New York, Miami, Brussels, and we use hundreds of billboard, projection, murals, both, and that's the exciting part of it as a fair organizer. So yeah, I'm very excited for what we did and very excited for the future as well.
Great, thank you. So my next question is around the audience, or let's say the new audience, because there is a growing audience of affluent buyers. Mainly they are Gen Z, gamers, designers, programmers, just like tech generation people who made their fortune via the cryptocurrency markets. So far, it has been very difficult for the art market to access those people, yes. So they never were really interested in buying classic or traditional art. That's at least what I heard from the market a lot. But now they're feverishly buying NFTs on marketplaces like OpenSea or Rarible. There are even artists creating their own platforms like Folia. So how do you see your role, since basically almost all of you are established market players? So who wants to start? Maybe Steven again?
Yes, sure. Well, yeah, as I was saying earlier, it's an incredibly different market than what we were used to. I think there's more of a sense of trading involved that happens immediately versus holding on to an artwork, enjoying it, living with it. So for the most part, there seems to be a very different way of thinking about acquisition compared to what we were used to, even though we were selling digital art in the past. But what I've seen, and I think is very promising, is there's definitely an education that's starting to happen. One of the biggest concerns about NFTs that we came across was presentation. Like, there's a lack of interest in how do you experience and enjoy this as an artistic purchase. And we're working really hard at trying to show by example how this work can be experienced in different ways. And I think as this continues, both with different types of platforms, art fairs, more galleries embracing the concept, I think you will see this new audience start to look at the acquisition of an NFT, hopefully skewed more towards the acquisition of an artwork versus an instantly flippable asset.
Mm-hmm. So Anthony, you've been digging into that a bit more and are also coming from the tech side. Can you maybe describe the audience and also their needs?
Well, it's a tricky question. With NFT, we have a kind of mix between art, web pop culture, and crypto culture. So it's very different audience and different platforms, as Dirk said, for that people. And we have to keep in mind that video game NFTs are by far the most important field from an economic point of view, much more than art. And it's sometimes difficult for our people to understand the whole picture of this technological ecosystem. So I don't know how art market could respond to this. Maybe it's already the case with Christie, who already, for example, sell street art or different kind of assets. but it will be a big challenge, I think, in the coming months.
So, and there has been, like, one could say there is a lot of flipping happening or investing into art pieces, like NFT art pieces, I would say. So how, and also it's kind of, an NFT gains value the more it's shared and the more transitions are made. Isn't that totally against the art market, where it's like also, I mean, there is always a copy and an original, but still it's not been well received if art is flipped? Dirk, what do you think on that aspect?
Well, to be frank, I'm not the right person to ask here, because I work on the secondary market for an auction house, and the concept of auction is you sell to the highest bidder. So we cannot place artworks, and that means we cannot control who buys from us. I mean, not from us as a corporation, but from us as a marketplace. I personally think it's absolutely wonderful to sell something to a collector, but actually we don't judge our clients. So if someone wants to invest or impress his mother-in-law, that's all fine. I think the real issue here is that unlike every single previous innovation in kind of artistic language or technology, we see here the secondary market happening at the same time as canonization has only started. And so the institutions, the art critics, haven't really established a proper ground kind of the secondary market can walk on. And so in a way, every market player is free to sell whatever is commercially possible and where there is a demand. And of course, demand is fueled by speculation. That's very obvious and has always been like that. So it's a complicated situation. It's a new situation, and you can only help the whole process, I mean, as a secondary market player, with your selection process by being very careful what you offer and trying to get, I mean, that's a bit of a funny word in this context, but historic works, works by artists, works by people who are credible in that artistic content, not necessarily in the market or not only in the market. So there is a greater responsibility sitting with the art market players, but it is a big issue, and I would say that past developments have shown that these situations create a lot of stuff that is not going to hold the value, is not going to be appreciated in whatever 2, 3, 5 years. So it'll be really interesting to see how time will select what is really of interest, what is representing the period, what is interesting art, because this is what art markets are about, and this is what the value of artworks is about, essentially.
Great, thank you. And Gregoire, so as a gallery and a fair selling classic art work, I think secondary and first market, do you hope to also get new buyers through the NFT market?
Absolutely, and in our case, actually, we decided to address this new audience and to basically serve as a bridge between the NFTs and the classical art. We create actually a specific fair for them, the NFT art fair. That's Cube Art Fair. That's what we launched, and that directly reach and address this demographic that otherwise usually doesn't buy or doesn't collect art. And by actually focusing on this, I would say, educational and awareness aspect of NFT art, we hope that it will inspire this new demographic and this new audience to buy both digital and physical art in the future. And by having the ability to build a relationship with them, for them to buy what they want, eventually in the future we can raise awareness and we see actually already the result. We see that NFT collectors, because they've now a stronger relationship with the artists, end up buying artwork because they are now sensible to the story of the artist, of this relationship. So it's very exciting, and I think we will see much more bridge in the future between this NFT and the classical art.
Great, wonderful. So we already tapped a bit into this, into the selection of the NFT artists. I was wondering, in general, the validation of a artwork or the selection of an artwork that used to be like pretty much in the traditional art market. There were like auction houses, galleries, institutions, or curators that had a strong opinion in the selection and also the validation of artists and their works. So I wonder, like the blockchain is basically about the removement of the middlemen or gatekeepers and giving direct access. And how do you position yourself, or how do you like validate such a work that is in comparison that actually the classical NFT market is doing it? Anthony, you want to answer? Yeah.
Yes, please. Yes, it's a great challenge. We can wonder if it's only the value of the work who legitimates the after. But there is still middlemen, even on platforms like Inketnunk, there is no curation. But at the end, it's the positioning on the platform and its ecological values attract some artists and exclude others. And maybe a positive effect is to see a new kind of artists, like one from Brasilia, for example, who are not well represented in the traditional art market. So it's interesting to see new countries and new artists represented online.
Mm-hmm. So, Dirk, for example, with Beeple, how did that selection process happen? Like, how did you come up with Beeple? Like, what made him who he is?
Well, I mean, Beeple already had a history, not only kind of in perception and kind of appearance, but also in on the market, on different platforms. But he was out there, and also I mean, we wanted to present someone who already had a following, and we knew him. I mean, my colleague Noah Davis in New York knew him. So this came all together. We also have to admit that now it seems to have been such a big decision, such a heavy decision. When we were looking into it, it was just an interesting thing. And looking back, the other kind of steps Christie's did, where Christie's was the first classic art market platform to dare something like offering the first work of AI created art, or I don't know, offering our clients to have their acquisition locked on a blockchain. There was a certain pickup, but far from what we experienced with Beeple. So in a sense, the decision was maybe done in a much lighter way than it appears today.
Great. So my next question is about the risks of NFTs. So they obviously offer benefits like authentication and traceability, which is great in the art world. However, the volatility of cryptocurrency, as well as the uncertainty of the technology, I would say, pose significant risk to the stability of this market. Currently, China has announced to ban cryptocurrency. Is there any way one can protect buyers or even artists? Like everyone is deeply in it. Steve, do you want to answer to this question?
Sure. Again, I think we're coming at this with a very unique perspective because we have been doing this for a long time, minus the NFT. So when we're selling this type of work to collectors, even when they buy an NFT, in many cases, we are treating them like we did pre-NFT. They will get the proper information from the artist. We will send them a package. We will send them a certification that's not an NFT, just in case this NFT somehow has issues in the future. So I think the way to somehow soften the risk is to also go back and look at what's happening, what happened historically, and don't completely remove that, which is what has happened in most cases. The other thing is we feel that there's an amazing history of this type of work that happened prior to NFTs that also needs to be out there and for people to understand, where artists who have practiced for 20, 30, 40, 50 years in this medium. And that also has a risk reduction in some cases because they already have provenance and history. Yeah, so I think that's how we feel about that.
Mm-hmm. So my next question is about collectors or even institutions who have a kind of a social responsibility or also an educational, cultural mission to show art to the public. So if I think of an NFT, it's like something that doesn't really have a space that one can visit except, I think, online or a metaverse. So how will they do this in the future? How do I show my collection? Anthony, or
yes, for now, most of the NFTs are just pictures, but that could be much more than that. That could be interaction, smart contracts. They could include governance. For example, we are only at the beginning, I think, and it's very limited for now. You can show your NFTs, for example, on your avatar, on Discord, on Twitter very soon. And as we spent much time online, it's maybe more important to own a digital asset than physical ones now and maybe in the future also. But it's still limited, but it's the same question for the net art, for example. On Art Basel, you can see the work of Jody, the whole collective, and it's the same kind of question. How do you show your net art work if you own or a video? I don't know if it's very different with NFTs.
Okay. And in a more classical setting, Gregoire, how do you advise your clients, your collectors?
Well, is still a market, right? So with supply and demand forces. So it's really when I would say difficult to guarantee any risk totally, and volatility of the cryptocurrency does have an impact on NFTs. So in the physical art market as well. If there is a devaluation of the dollar, that will have an impact on the international art market, physical classic art, and NFT is exactly the same thing and related to the cryptocurrency.
All right. So so a lot of people, they're like very worried about NFTs or even cryptocurrencies, that this is a bubble. So what do you think about it?
Well, me?
Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah. So a lot of people asking me the question, is it a bubble or not? But I think to address this question, whether it is an NFT bubble or not, we break down the drivers behind the growth of NFT. So first, we're observing an acceleration of the digitalization of assets. That's what we've been seeing for the past few years, such as music rights, e-sport, etc. And then second, we see a tokenization of these assets, and that ultimately enable the transfer of ownership and blockchain for the transfer is an enabler, right? And lastly, we see that the cryptocurrency is the currency to purchase NFT. So there is a volatility in cryptocurrency, but that I would say is natural with any currency. But at the end of the day, the two first points, the digitalization and the tokenization, are really the fundamental, I would say. The volatility will always be the case, but the fundamental are there, and that's shown and is, in my point of view, not a bubble. because of this fundamental across different industry, and art is one of them.
Okay, so now I would like to open the floor to questions. First, I go online to Valentin. Do you have a question for the speakers? Maybe you can. I know.
Yes, we do have two questions. So the first one is from Arnaud, who's asking, we see museums entering the NFTs movement by digitalizing their own artworks. This creates a totally new and potentially massive market. Where do you see this market going?
So, Museum Anthony, you want to answer?
Yes,
I can.
there is an example of the British Museum who just sell Okuzai NFTs. I don't see the point, to be honest. It's like, it's like they want to be part of the buzz, but they don't understand really what the crypto culture and the blockchain technologies are. Maybe other museums could be more interesting things, but for now it's too limited, I think.
Does anyone else want to answer to that question of the speakers?
Well, I think that some museums are concerned about funding, and I think this offers an opportunity to potentially fund certain shows, certain artists, certain commissions. It's almost like when you go to the museum store and you're buying a poster or whatever. I don't think the museum should start assets, but I think there's ways to tap into this new marketplace and generate income that could potentially help the success of the museum.
Okay, so should we move to the second question, Valentin?
Yes, so we have Laura who's saying, thank you for a great session. Can you discuss the benefits of the Swiss DLT laws and how this can add legal certainty to tokenizing assets?
Who wants to answer? Can anyone answer?
To call my tech guy on that. I'm not, I can't answer that.
I'm sorry, we cannot answer to this question, but maybe he can send it per email and we might be able to answer that question. But now the room. Is anyone in the room in Istanbul who has a question about this session, about NFTs? Yeah?
Thank you so much for hosting this panel, Claudia, and for all of the panelists being a part. I am wondering specifically, getting on the tech aspect, and gender inequality. I think this is something that we've seen in gaming, in tech, I mean, in a lot of major industries that are revolving around this NFT market, also in terms of producers. I'm wondering how we're seeing the effect of the confluence of all of these industries with relatively severe issues in terms of gender inequality coming together, and how that will affect the market and the actors involved.
Great question, thank you. Anthony, do you want to start with that? Because you do a lot of research, I think you might have some insights on that.
Well, thanks. It's a tricky question. It's the same in AA, for example. There is some still a few women who are interested in that field, but I can quote Aude Lenay, for example. She's a young curator and very active in the NFT theory. She will lead a new lecture series in Gaîté Lyrique Paris, and she already wrote a lot of papers that I can share in the chat if you want. It's only one example, but yes, there is still a lot of things to do, definitely.
And what about the female creators? I mean, they're not only male artists, I think there's also a lot of female creators. Yeah.
There is a lot of pseudonyms online, so it's difficult sometimes to know what gender is.
Well, yeah.
But yes, sorry.
Absolutely. But Steve and Gregoire, your programs are like 50-50, or is it, what's your observation on that?
Well, I definitely think there's an inequality. We're trying to do our best to improve that. But what's interesting, what's happened is, you know, outside the traditional art world, there's so many more opportunities for self-creators, no matter what race, religion, gender you are. And I think that that will somehow begin to level the playing field, because there aren't these control mechanisms involved. So I'm seeing a lot of diversity from the people I deal with, and I'm hoping that's going to you know, work its way through the art world.
Great. So now we're almost running out of time. I have one last question for all the four of you, and I was wondering, like, if you could give a valuable piece of advice to the audience, what would it be? Gregoire, yeah?
I would say embrace change, embrace new technology, and don't be afraid. And I think that's what art is all about. It's about wave and about embracing the element and surround it. It could be also ability, but also could be new technology. That's
Okay, great. So one sentence from you, Dirk.
Can I leave the first to the others and join as a last? I'm sorry.
Yeah. Okay, then Stephen.
I would say to start to have more of an emotional connection to the work that's being created.
Anthony.
Yeah, there is a website who lists all the times media talk about the death of Bitcoin for more than 10 years. So I think it's here to stay. And it will be a big challenge for brands to embrace all of the possibilities of blockchain.
Okay, wonderful. So a huge thank you to all of you. This was a brilliant conversation, and also...
Sorry to interrupt you. I would step in now with my comment, if I may.
All right.
I think collecting art will become as digital as everything else has become and is going to. And I think it's important to not overestimate the advantage of what's going on technologically, but not to forget about the art content of collecting. Sorry.
Thank you. Yeah, so thank you also for this final sentence, and a huge thank you also to the Art Tech Forum for hosting this, to the Sabanci University, and of course to Audemars Piguet, who was the sponsor of this session. And we are having a little break now before we go into the next session. Thank you.
Thank you.